Hello, class. My name is Madison Monroe. Today is March 15th, 2022, and I will be going over case connection assignment number 2, and I will be discussing case 2 and case 4. Let's start with case 2 right now. Case 2 entails of a 16-year-old female that is recently diagnosed with a deficiency of muscle glycogen phosphorylase. She and her family are concerned and ask the following questions. Based on what you know about skeletal muscle glycogenolysis and muscle metabolism, please respond to each question with a thoughtful answer that describes the metabolism in these various scenarios in a language that your patient will understand. The patient first asks the question, "I'm not sure I understand the issue. Can you explain how muscle glycogen is used normally during exercise?" Of course, I can go over how muscle glycogen is used during exercise. During exercise, muscle glycogen is broken down, which frees glucose molecules. The muscle cells then oxidize the glucose via aerobic and anaerobic processes, which thus produce ATP. And ATP is what allows for muscle contraction, and this occurs during the process of exercising. When your body moves, it's a series of processes including your muscles contracting and relaxing. So for this to happen, ATP needs to be used. So that is the way that muscle glycogen is used during exercise in order to make ATP, which allows for the muscle to then contract. The patient's next concern and question is that she really likes to take long walks, and she wants to know if she will still be able to do this with her friends. Yes, as a patient living with McArdle disease, which is a deficiency in muscle glycogen phosphorylase, light to moderate aerobic exercises such as walking are actually going to be encouraged. While many enter a sedentary lifestyle after receiving this type of diagnosis, data does show positive results from partaking in low to moderate intensity aerobic exercising, about 5 times a week, ranging from 10 to 60 minutes per exercise day. By doing this, you're actually going to be able to potentially increase your power output by 25%, increase your oxygen uptake by 44%, and decrease serum CK levels. And a decrease of serum CK levels actually are indicative of less muscle damage, so that's great. Overall, exercise training and an appropriate carbohydrate or sugar pre-exercise intake that will be regulated by your doctor can greatly benefit you living with this condition. The patient's next question is, as a result of this deficiency, will I need to get up to eat to maintain my blood glucose levels in the middle of the night? It is not necessary to eat around the clock with this disease. A diet advised by your doctor, however, will be very important. A carbohydrate-rich diet will be instrumental in the treatment of this disease. Creatine supplements can also be helpful to implement into the diet. And your doctor will also be able to prescribe sucrose preemptively before exercising. Again, this is all going to be regulated and monitored by your doctor and healthcare team. So we'll make sure that your diet and your exercising will be regulated and at appropriate levels for you living with this disease. The patient's next question is, do I need to worry about producing excessive lactate during intense aerobic exercise? No. You do not need to worry about producing excessive lactate during exercise with McArdle disease. Due to the muscle phosphorylase defect, which is the deficiency, This is going to disturb glycogen metabolism at the beginning of the glycogenolytic cycle. Thus, this is not going to increase lactate before, during, or after exercising because it is in the beginning of that cycle. And that is going to conclude case 2. And now we will move on to case 4, which consists of a previously healthy 2-month-old female presents with jittery spells several hours after breastfeeding. Her mother reports that she has not given the baby anything to eat other than breast milk since birth. The mother has only been sleeping the baby has only recently been sleeping for more than 2 hours between feedings. That's when the mother reports that the symptoms started. Laboratory results are consistent with hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, but are otherwise unremarkable. Epinephrine is administered and there is no increase in blood glucose, but there is an increase in blood lactate. The physical exam does reveal a liver edge 4 centimeters below the right costal margin. Percussion of the right chest and abdomen confirms hepatology, which is an enlarged liver. Blood glucose levels increase after breastfeeding, but she cannot maintain blood glucose levels within a normal range during fasting. Based on the information, which of the following diagnoses is most likely relevant to this patient? Hereditary fructose intolerance, galactosemia, glycogen storage disease, which is the inability to use glycogen, and glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. So based on all of the labs and the symptoms that have been stated by the mother, this diagnosis is going to most likely be glycogen storage disease. A patient with glycogen storage disease will be missing an enzyme that breaks down the glycogen, and this causes the glycogen to build up in the liver. Hypoglycemia and liver enlargement are very common symptoms that are associated with glycogen storage disease, so we can check those boxes off there. Epinephrine does activate gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis pathways. By administering the epinephrine, the blood glucose levels will not increase, but the blood lactate levels will increase. And from this, we can associate, by the use of the epinephrine, that blood lactate levels will increase from this. So for those reasons, that's why we can most likely pinpoint glycogen storage disease to be the probable diagnosis for our 2-month-old patient. But we're going to go over the other possible answers and why they're not most likely probable. First, let's go over hereditary fructose intolerance. With this disease, the intolerance is to fructose. Here, we're saying that we have glucose issues. We're saying hypoglycemia. So, because of what the disease is focused on, it's most likely not going to be probable because breast milk has such a low concentration of fructose that it would just be very unlikely for this to impact an infant that is only consuming breast milk. But if this patient was at the age where he or she was starting to eat fruits, then this could be definitely more of a possibility. This disease can also be associated with hypoglycemia and liver enlargement, so it's definitely still important to look at the symptoms associated, but also to look at the consumption of what the patient could be eating. Looking at galactosemia, we can assume that it is not galactosemia because in this defect is the issue with the conversion of galactose is not being able to be converted over to glucose in order to produce energy. So if this were the case in those labs that we drew, we would not just see hypoglycemia, but we would also see an increase in galactose in the blood work, and that would be highly indicative of galactosemia. And for that reason, we can assume that it's most likely not going to be galactosemia because we would be seeing that blood work. And finally, we'll go over glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. And it will not be this disease because in this disease, this causes for red blood cells to break down prematurely. And a true tale sign of this disease would again be correlated into the lab work results that we would be given. From this, we would see evidence of anemia in the labs that were drawn. Because this lab was only drawn to truly show hypoglycemia, we can assume that it's not going to be glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency, because anemia would be a true telling sign, and we would see that in the blood work through the red blood cell concentrations and what the patient has going on in the blood work. So for those reasons, we can assume that for this patient, is most likely dealing with glycogen storage disease. Thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you.